Sure.
Thank you. Yeah, it's 157. Sure. That's one of those. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's really a pleasure to be here on the first day of school. It's been a while since I've been back at the first day of school. And we start with the beginning, Chodesh Elul. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to Chodesh Elul. But we know Elul is alluded to in the famous pasuk, Ani l'doidi v'doidi li. And everyone's going to talk about how close we are to HaKadosh Baruch Hu during this time of the year. That's certainly true. And we're going to talk about how Moshe Rabbeinu went up to Har Sinai for the third time to receive the Luchais during this time of the year. That's certainly true. But whenever you start something, you always have to look at the beginning. So what's the beginning of Elul? Elul begins with the word Ani. Ani l'doidi v'doidi li. Which means until you understand the meaning of the word Ani, you can't progress and proceed to have a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. First we have to recognize what Ani is. Now, today's a big day in your lives. Whether you're in 9th grade or you're in 12th grade or somewhere in between. Whether you like it or not, whether you know it or not, today charts the course of the rest of your life. I always look back. This goes back this goes back 19 years ago. I was a bacher in Eretz Yisrael. It was my first Elul in Eretz Yisrael. I remember the date, it was Ches Elul. So, about this time of the year. And it was Shabbos. It was the first shmuz I heard in yeshiva when I was a bacher. And the Rebbe depicted, this Rebbe is a great Talmud Chacham. He wrote Svarim on Shas, he wrote Svarim on Chumash. And he was describing to us Bilam Harasha standing on the top of the mountain overlooking Eretz Yisrael, and he hones in on a particular group of people who are situated in the corner of Eretz Yisrael and in the Beis HaMikdash in what is called the Lishkas Hagazis, the chamber of hewn stone. And who were they? They were the Keni. The Keni are the descendants of Yisrael. And Bilam was astounded. The descendants of Yisrael? They're in the Sanhedrin? They're the leaders of the Jewish people? I can't believe it! Me and Yisrael, we were buds. Back in the day, we were best friends. We were sitting there in the same class. We were actually in the same court case when the Pharaoh, had an issue with the Jewish people. And Paroi didn't know what to do. He had a problem. He didn't know, should he exterminate us? Should he give us food to eat? Should he let us stay in Egypt? He didn't know what to do, so he convened a court case. And who were the three judges on the court case? Bilam, Yisrael, Eiv. Very good, Eiv. And Eiv was sitting there, and he didn't know what to do. He didn't know what to say. Should he defend the Jewish people? Should he accuse the Jewish people? Eiv kept his mouth closed. He was silent the whole time. And Bilam said, eradicate them, destroy them, murder them, kill them. And Yisro spoke up. Yisro said, if you dare touch them, God will pour his wrath on you. He'll take revenge against you. And there's this court case, and the Gemara tells us that Eiv, because he was silent and he didn't speak up, he was punished with afflictions. And because Yisro spoke up, his children are firmly seated in the highest seat in Jewish government, the leaders of the Sanhedrin. And because Bilam accused us, and he attacked us, and he said we should be exterminated, Bilam was killed. And Bilam is looking back to the day he was sitting next to Yisro in the same court case, and Bilam says, look at me, and look at you. Your children are forever the leaders of the Jewish people, and I'm the paragon, the quintessential Rasha. And I remember our Rebbe asked, what was so shocking to Eiv, to Bilam? What was so surprising to Bilam? He was surprised of where he is and where Yisro is? You know why Bilam is a Rasha and Yisro was so successful and he has children who are tzaddikim? Because Bilam made the wrong decision and Yisro made the right decision. So Bilam decided to accuse us, so he was punished. And Yisro spoke up to defend us, so he was rewarded. What exactly did Bilam not understand? This is not exactly rocket science over here. You know, if they would have said the same thing, we could understand Bilam's surprise. But they made different decisions. So what couldn't Bilam understand? And I remember the Rebbe said, Bilam and Yisro, they were sitting right next to each other in the same class. They were best friends. And when Paroi didn't know what to do, you could be sure it entered Bilam's mind. Maybe he should make the right decision and he should tell Paroi not to harm us. And you could also be sure it entered Yisro's mind. Maybe to curry favor with the Pharaoh, he should make the wrong decision. And at that point in life, they were exactly on the same footing. They were side by side on the exact same level. And what Bilam couldn't understand is how is it possible for two people in the same classroom, in the same state in life, two good friends, to a little while later be so diametrically opposite. He couldn't understand that there are certain moments and decisions in life that chart the course of the rest of your life. And the first day of school is one of them. You know, you come here, you see your good friends, old friends, new friends, and you think about the upcoming year, and maybe Yamim Tovim, and maybe summer already, and you think it's just high school, it's just 9th grade, or even just 12th grade. The small decisions that you make today, and for the rest of the year, literally chart the course for the rest of your life. There's a reason why David HaMelech says that young people are compared to arrows in the hand of the archer. Because you turn that arrow just 1 millimeter upward, it doesn't look like a big difference now, but the arrow will end up miles apart than if you were to turn that arrow 1 millimeter downward. So let's talk a little bit about who we are, what is our capacity, what is our potential. I want to share with you a very profound idea. This is not a simple idea, this is not an elementary idea, but it's a very important idea. You know, Hashem interacts with us in different ways. The way Hashem is manifest to us is in different dimensions. So for example, the reality of Hashem's existence is what we call, listen to this expression, matzoi mukhrach, meaning he inherently exists. He doesn't need us. There's nothing we do that affects him. Whether we're here or we're not here, Hashem's existence remains the same. He is matzoi mukhrach. He just is, was, and will be. And in that capacity, we refer to Hashem. Who knows which name of Hashem refers to Hashem's just absolute existence? Elokim. That's what Elokim means. Matzoi mukhrach. But on the other hand, he created us. And we need him. And we depend on him. We need food, we need clothing, we need everything we have. And in that capacity in which Hashem interacts with us as our master, what is his name? Aleph, Daled, Nun, Yud. Adoi, and then Noi. But there's a third aspect of Hashem's existence, and it's going to come surprising to you that we describe it this way. This is the relationship that we have with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we focus on Rosh Hashanah, and the days coming up to Rosh Hashanah. We refer to Hashem as Mem, Lamed, Chaf, Melech, King. And when I was younger, I used to think, oh, Hashem's the Melech. This is the greatness of Hashem, the grandeur of Hashem, the majesty of Hashem, the exalted nature of Hashem. Hashem's the king, and it's a mistake. When we refer to Hashem as a melech, it's not God's exalted stature, It's his humility. Listen carefully. It's his humility. What is a king? A king is someone who takes pride in his subjects, who, so to speak, boasts that these are my subjects. God takes pride in us. Hashem is proud of us. Beroiv am hadras melech. The Almighty Creator takes pride in the Jewish people. That's the humility of Hashem. Do you understand what I'm telling you? The humility of Hashem is that He allows us to refer to Him as it were, as if He's our King, as if He takes pride in us. So on Rosh Hashanah, we shouldn't think of Hashem, oh, today's Hashem's day, that He's getting a lot of attention and we're really elevating Him. No, just the opposite. It's the day of Hashem's humility, that He allows Himself to be considered our King. But it's very interesting. How do we coronate Hashem? Do we blow a trumpet? That would be more reasonable. We blow a shofar. How exactly, by blowing the horn of a ram, does that coronate Hashem? So I want to share with you a very important idea. This is a very profound idea. Because on the one hand, in order to coronate Hashem, so to speak, we're lowering Hashem to us. But even as much as we lower Hashem to us, is He really our King? I'll give you an example. I once met a guy I'll make up a place, in California, okay? Even though I was just there, but that's not where I met him. And I said, what do you do for a living? Because I remembered he used to be a computer programmer. He says, Rabbi Glatstein, you didn't hear? I'm the new king. I'm a king. Really? What country are you a king over? No, not a country. It's all in my backyard. Really? You have a kingdom in your backyard? Yeah, absolutely. I went to the pet store. I bought an ant farm. Ants, yeah? And I'm the king of the ant farm. It's a new job. It's very popular these days. I'm the king of the ant farm. Could a human being being a king of an ant farm? Absolutely not. That's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard. You can't be a king over ants. The ants don't even know you exist. You have no commonality with the ants. You see, the definition of a king is if he shares everything in common with his subjects. It's just that the king is slightly more elevated. But if the king is so fundamentally superior to his subjects, that's not a melech. Maybe it's a moishel, maybe it's a shalit, but it's not a melech. A melech is someone that's misnase, is a little bit more elevated than his subjects. So please, could somebody tell me, how is the Almighty our king? I guarantee you that the difference between a human and an ant is much less than between God and we and us. So how is Hashem our king? You ever think about that? We say Hashem Melech, Hashem Malach, Hashem Yimloich, Li'olam Va'ed, HaMelech. That's like the highlight of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. The king. Why don't we think of that as a joke? Hashem's our king? What do we have in common with Hashem? Says Rav Hutner, herein lies the fundamental, greatest impediment in Avodas Hashem. You know what the greatest impediment is? I get up in the morning and I say, yeah, I'm going to daven today. How am I going to daven? And you think to yourself, I don't know, does it really matter? What am I? What am I? What is my tefillah worth? Hashem is listening to it. Doesn't He have more important things to think about? The fundamental, the greatest impediment to serving Hashem is not recognizing who we are. So who are we? Who are we? You know, do you remember in Slichos? If you ever looked at Slichos, we have this very interesting tefillah. I'll give you a story. Anyone here ever visit the house of Reb Chaim Kanievsky? You ever go to Bnei Brak? Visit maybe Rebbe Tzim Kanievsky? I've been there also. Did anyone ever go to Reb Chaim Kanievsky and not get in? Like you knock on the door and he's not available. Yeah, it happened to me. I went there. I didn't get in. And after, I'm waiting at the door for an hour, and one of the big Rosh Hashivas in Eretz Yisrael knocks on the door and went right in. And I wasn't happy about that. But I still didn't get in. And then I was thinking, you know, if Rebbe Yashiv would have come, Would he have gotten in? Yeah, you could bet your bottom dollar Rabbi Yashiv gets in. What about Rav Gershon Edelstein? He'll get in. What if Rav Yitzchak Yosef came? He would also get in. What if after those great Gedolim got in, I would knock on the door and I would have said like this: just like you let in Rabbi Yashiv and Rav Gershon Edelstein, let in Glatstein. Would that be a compelling argument? No. No, I'm not insulted, but no. That would not be a good argument. If I would have said, you let this tzaddik in and this gadol in, so also let me in, that's not a good argument. They're much greater than I am. Did you notice that in Slichos we say, listen to the words we say in Slichos, Misha'ana la'Avraham Avinu behar hamoiriya hu yanenu. He who answered Avraham at the Akedah, answer me. What kind of chutzpah is that? You're telling the Ribbon Shalom, just like you answered Avraham at the Akedah, you should answer me. Misha'ana liyitzchak kishenekar al gabei hamizbeach hu yaneni. How in the world do you have the audacity to say, just like you answered Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, answer me? But we have the audacity to say that. And you know what the reason is? Because you, I don't know you personally, but one thing I know, you're B'nai Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. You're B'nai Sarah, Rachel, Rivka, Valeah. And one thing I know is that Ribbon Shem gave you a neshama. And the neshama is a chelek elokah mimal. It's literally a piece of the divine. And Hashem blew our neshama into us. And the Zohar teaches, man de nafach midilei nafach. The one who blows from within themselves. Which means that your soul is a piece of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And it's divine. And it's eternal. And that means your capacity for greatness is infinite. In other words, if you were to wake up in the morning and ask yourselves, what could I do in this world? Who can I be? The answer is, your potential is infinite. And you are no less dear, beloved, cherished in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu than Avraham Avinu at the Akedah, than Yitzchak Avinu, than Eliyahu Hanavi. Do you believe that? Do you believe when you get up in the morning that Hashem loves you and values you and listens to your tefillah no less than any great tzaddik that ever lived in this world? So now we understand how Hashem is our melech, because we're b'nei melachim. We have a neshama. We share something in common with the Almighty, that we have a certain divine and infinite ability. Says Rav Hudner, being Mamlech Hashem, coronating Hashem, is not only lowering Hashem to us, but recognizing our infinite and unlimited ability. It's always very moving to me. I know somebody who became extremely knowledgeable in halacha. And you would think, I don't know, he learns halacha like 7 hours a day. He doesn't. He doesn't even learn every day. He learns an hour a week. And I remember he didn't go to yeshiva, and he took upon himself a small Kabbalah that he would learn halacha 1 hour on Sundays. And I remember him and another guy. And the other guy said, no, it's too much. He's too tired. He doesn't have the time. His family needs him. And this guy, without any yeshiva background at all, he changed the course of his whole life with one small, simple decision. You know, there was once a young girl in Vienna, and this was not typical of the community that she lived in. She had a beautiful and amazing voice. And people recognized she had literally professional talent. And what are you going to do? You know, as a frum Jewish girl, what are you going to do with a good voice? You know, what could you do already? But agents were after her. A particular agent proposed to her a lucrative contract. Her parents were shocked, frightened, astonished. They said, you know, it's very nice, you should be flattered, but obviously, you know, in the community that we live in, you know, maybe you'll sing in your school choir, but, you know, that's as far as you could take it. But she didn't want to listen. She heard out the agent. The agent made her a legitimate offer to sing in the Austrian opera. She would be set for the rest of her life. And she was prepared to accept the contract. The parents didn't know what to do. They bring the young girl to the Kapushnitzer Rebbe, who heard the girl out, and he asked her, look, be straight with me. What appeals to you about this contract? Is it the money? Is it the attention? She said, I'll be straight with you, Rebbe. It's the fame. It's the fame. Everyone will know who I am. Everyone will recognize me. So the Rebbe closes his eyes. He doesn't know what to say. After a few moments, he turns to her. He says, look, if it's the fame, you have to believe that Hashem doesn't give a person a challenge unless it's an equal challenge. I give you a promise. You will have a son who will illuminate the world with Torah. That's the story. We didn't have any further information about the story until Rav Dan Segal checked out the official chronicles of the Kehila in Austria, and he wanted to see if he came up with any details about the rest of the story. Sure enough, in the Sefer HaZikaron of this particular city, this girl ended up growing up, she got married, and she had a son, Shmuel. Who is this son? Rabbi Shmuel Halevi Vosner, who is the last Poisek Hadar. But what's very moving to me about this story is that in life, you make decisions. You don't know where it's going to lead you. Sometimes you will be the beneficiary of that decision, but somewhere down the line, your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, they will be the beneficiaries of your choices in this world. On Yom Kippur, it's not so long away, we're going to read about the Navi Yoina. And Yoina is sent, who remembers, which city is Yoina sent to? Nineveh. Nineveh is the capital of Ashur. Here's the problem. Ashur is Assyria. They're not Jewish. Yoina is supposed to tell them to do tshuva. Since when does God send Nevi'im to tell people to do tshuva? He doesn't. You could look throughout the pages of Tanakh, never once, Yeshaya, Yechezkel, Yirmiyah, they were never sent to the nations of the world to do tshuva. Except for Nineveh. Why Nineveh? What's special about Nineveh? So the Chizkuni in Parshas Noach says what's special about Nineveh? Because 2,000 years earlier, there's a guy by the name of Ashur. And Ashur opens up his living room window, and he sees they're building a big tower. And he asks him, well, what's this tower? He says, well, we had enough. We're fighting the heavens. And Ashur said, I don't like that. And Ashur said, I'm not going to be an innocent bystander. So Ashur ran away, and he established a new country out of Babylonia, out of Babel. And Hashem remembered that. And 2,000 years later, when the capital of his empire had been so sinful that had it been any other kingdom in the world, God would have destroyed it immediately like he did to Sodom and Amorah. Hashem said, the choice of the founder of this country, Ashur, now he's going to reap the benefits of that choice, and he gave them, and they're the only ones of all the nations of the world who were ever given the opportunity to do tshuva. Many years ago, someone told me a story about Ramat Yisrael Solomon, and I was trying to remember it. I was trying to recall it. I could not summon up the details. So I called up Ramat Yisrael's Talmud. I said, did you ever hear this in the story of what Ramat Yisrael said, why he was Zoicha to become the Mashgiach of the Lakewood Yeshiva? He said, I don't know what you're talking about. I never heard the story. I said, who would remember the story? He said, call Ramat Yisrael Solomon's son-in-law, Halperin. So I called one of the son-in-laws, and he said, the story that I told him sounds vaguely familiar. Call my other son-in-law. So I called the next son-in-law, and he said, I want to tell you something. Ramat Yisrael only said the story once. He said it when he was honored by the Lakewood Yeshiva. They had a camera, and anyone who deals with cameras know they don't always work. And there was no recording of that speech, not video, not audio, and nobody knows what happened to the speech, but I'm going to tell you what he said I remember it. And Rav Matisyahu was being honored by the Lakewood Yeshiva. He's the mashgiach of the yeshiva. And he gets up and he turns the whole thing on its face. Rav Matisyahu Solomon said, you think you're honoring me, you're not honoring me. Tonight's dinner is an honor to my mother. People say, what? Your mother? Your mother didn't learn in Lakewood? He said, let me tell you something. 70 years ago, during World War II, in the 1940s, Rav Aaron Cutler was in Kletsk, and the Nazis were hot on the trail. And they were going to try to capture him. And there was a plan in place to save the life of Rav Aaron Cutler, either through England or through America. And there was a certain Friday night. And the plan was in place to save Rav Aaron through England. And they needed someone to sit at the phone in case the call would come in from Kletsk that Rav Aaron needed to fly out to England immediately. And they needed a volunteer to sit by the phone on Shabbos to save the life of Rav Aaron Cutler. And a young teenager named Ethel Solomon volunteered to give up her entire Shabbos to sit by a telephone in case the call would come in to save the life of Rav Aaron Cutler. 70 years later, Rav Matisyahu Solomon, as the mashgiach of the Lakewood Yeshiva, said, in the merit of my mother, who risked her life, it was during the Blitz when the Germans were bombing England night after night after night. His mother had to sit in a bunker by a telephone in case the phone call would come in the merit of my mother who risked her life for the life of Rav Aaron Cutler, her son was zoicha to become the mashgiach of the Lakewood Yeshiva. The choices we make today, they may seem small, they may seem innocuous, but they make a difference in this world. The Rebbeinu Shalom remembers them, and they make a difference for you, and for your children, and for your grandchildren. So in 1957, the great maestro, the great composer, Arturo Toscanini, it was a year before his passing, and his biographer called him up and he says, Arturo, we just need to do one more interview, and then I'll be able to finish the biography. And Arturo said, when would you like to meet? And the biographer said, let's meet tomorrow night, Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Arturo said, we can't meet tomorrow night. He said, well, what's tomorrow night? Tomorrow night, you have to know, I'm retired now, I'm old now, but they're playing a symphony in Europe. I'm in America, and they're going to be playing it on shortwave radio. And I need to sit in my apartment and listen over the radio to how this conductor plays that symphony. So the biographer said, no problem. I'll come 7:45, I'll sit in the corner, and I won't make a peep. So Toscanini said, I know you already, you have ADHD, you're moving around, you're shuffling around, your keys are jingling, you make too much noise. The guy says, I'll be a statue, you won't even know I'm there. So he said, fine, but you better keep your word. 7:45, the biographer comes, he's sitting in the corner, he takes a deep breath, and for 60 minutes, he does not inhale. The hour is over, the symphony is over. He turns to Toscanini, he says, wow, that was incredible, that was unbelievable, that was amazing. Toscanini says, you fool, that was a disaster. That was terrible. So the biographer knew that Toscanini was out of his mind, and he was. He was a madman, he had a raging temper, but people tolerated him because he was a perfectionist. Nobody could lead the orchestra like him. And the biographer said, what was wrong? Toscanini said, what do you mean what was wrong? There were supposed to be 120 musicians, 15 violinists, 14 showed up. So the biographer realized Toscanini lost it. How could you possibly hear over shortwave radio that one violinist didn't show up? So he just kept his mouth closed and he walked out. But then he said, maybe this guy knows something. The biographer called up the manager of the symphony hall in Europe. He said, by the way, I'm an American correspondent. I was just wondering, how did the symphony go last night? So he said, pretty good. Most people thought it was great. But between me and you, There were supposed to be 120 musicians, 15 violinists. One guy didn't show. The guy, he's floored. The biographer is floored. He goes to Toscanini. He says, "Are you kidding me? How were you able to hear on shortwave radio that one violinist was missing?" And Toscanini says, "That's the difference between me and you. You see, you're just in the audience. So if there's one missing violinist, you can't tell the difference. But I'm the composer. And I hear every decibel, I hear every tone, I hear every nuance." Sometimes in life we say, do my decisions really matter? How I daven, how I act, how I speak, how I conduct myself? And the answer is, it may or may not matter to the girl sitting next to you. It may or may not matter to your teacher, but to the great conductor who is perceptive to every nuance and every detail and every hischazkos and every effort you make, we believe that every little effort we make makes a difference to the great conductor of the universe. It will make a difference for your life, for the life of your children, for the life of all your descendants. My humble bracha to you is you should have tremendous siyata d'shmaya in the upcoming year. Take advantage of the wonderful opportunity you have here in this beautiful yeshiva, in this beautiful school. And Be'ezus Hashem, make sure you point your arrow upward, lamala, lamala. You should all be zoicha to ksiva chsima taiva. Thank you very much.